Hey guys, welcome into another episode of From the Wing. I'm Christian Clark, the Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. We're going to spend most of today's show talking about the NBA draft. Excited to do that with a special guest, Shamit Dua.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? That was my cue, but
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
that was the intro. Hey, hello. I'm
Hey,
excited to do this.
hello.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Of course. You always have, I think, interesting draft takes. It feels like there's a wide range of options they could go at 14. I mean, I think it's a question, are they even going to make a pick at 14? I could see them moving up. I could see them moving back. So we'll definitely get into that. But I feel like off the top, we got to spend a little time talking about Zion Williamson's wild week. And I don't want to go into like the salaciousness. And I'm not here to be like, look at this dummy, because I was 22 once and I did dumb stuff too, and I really can't knock him too hard. But this is just a brief recap of the past 5-6 days. On Tuesday, Akima, that's Zion's partner, her video on her YouTube channel goes live announcing that her and Zion are going to have a baby girl in November. I thought it was noteworthy that she launched her channel with this video. She did not have a YouTube channel before this. Wednesday, an adult film actress, Mariah Mills, starts tweeting a whole lot of things, and you can go to her timeline to look at all that. We don't need to like go into exactly everything she said, I guess, because oh my God, there was a lot, and she's still going. Friday was the Jefferson Parish Schools event. Zion and his stepfather, Lee Anderson, was there. Lee took the mic and said in front of the media, believe half of what you see and nothing what you hear. And Zion stood behind him laughing. And yeah, Mariah Mills's Twitter, I guess, tirade has continued into Sunday. This is day 5 of it. Shamit, what are your overall thoughts on this past week?
I'm exhausted, first of all. None of this knowledge was given to me with my permission. I learned all of this against my will. And I don't feel qualified to have any kind of like analysis on this other than I think there's um I think there's a few things that are noteworthy that I think one of the things that you brought up was the gender reveal video being launched on a YouTube account, which wasn't promoted by Zion in any way, shape, or form. Zion has not been active on social media as far as I'm aware. His parents were noticeably absent in that gender reveal video. Not sure what that means, but that is something that is out there with regards to the Mariah Mills stuff. I think it was shocking when it first started. Now it's just exhausting, and I'm not sure anyone really cares. And I think my take on this has been, first of all, we don't know if anything that she's alleging is true in any capacity. She hasn't posted anything that you can concretely say is evidence. I know there's screenshots and whatever, but those don't seem to be like ironclad. I still think those are things that can be fabricated if someone wanted to fabricate them. But so that's thought number one. Thought number two is that like there was some chatter about like Zion's maturity or responsibility and stuff. And I think while it's accurate to say that like he's probably not the most mature person, I thought anything leaning in the direction of like, oh, we should trade him because of this was a bridge too far. I think this is pretty typical ball player stuff, not uncommon in the world of professional athletes, and I don't think it's something that should factor into team building decisions in any capacity. He just has the misfortune of being subject to this in a very, very public fashion that is atypical. But as far as like the situation of potentially having relations with a bunch of different women, that's not uncommon in the
What
athlete
happened,
space.
what allegedly happened is normal stuff for NBA players. It is atypical that it spilled into public view like this, and I guess we can talk about the reasons why. But Adam, what are your thoughts about this messy situation?
It's just funny. The fun part about this for me is like I have my diehard Pelicans friends, a lot of which are shared with you guys, and then I have like my casual, more diehard Saints friends that I grew up with, and It's always interesting to get their reaction to this because it's kind of like a microcosm of your casual or non NBA fan that goes to games when we're winning but isn't really bought into the team, and their immediate reaction was, "He's a bust, trade him." Like this is so clear that he's terrible. You got to get rid of him. And it's like stuff my dad would say. And then my immediate reply is like, you guys know that like most of the guys in the NBA sleep around. Like this isn't like that novel of a thing. The novel part is how it's spilling out. And I think our reaction immediately was like, we see the initial tweets and there's an immediate dubious nature to the first couple of tweets that come out. And we're like, okay, this might just be like a let's just jump on, pile on here. And then it kept going, and then it went all day, and you're like, okay, there's probably something to this. But now we're on like day 5. If there was real, like, if this was about emotions and feelings, it feels very much like we're in like keeping my social engagement high at this point. Like Schmidt said, like none of us are willing participants. We never were, and we're certainly not now. Like everybody's just blocking her and moving on because it's just
Yeah.
the same stuff over and over
I mean,
again.
my thoughts were, Zion, put me on retainer and I'll be your Winston Wolf. I will be your fixer. Like that to me is kind of like the most noteworthy part about all this. It just doesn't appear like Zion has anyone in his immediate circle with any brains or like how to deal with this stuff. And you would think, he's repped by CAA. Like I'm sure CAA has people skilled in crisis management. It's like, are you using them? I don't know. But like so Mariah Mills, like she went on this tirade because she was surprised by this news, right? Like that was the thing that set her off. Not that this happened. I think she acknowledged on Twitter, hey, look, I get it. Like ball players are going to have multiple women. That's just kind of what it is. They're rock stars. I mean, whatever. But what set her off was she was surprised by all this. To me, it seemed like this all could have been avoided with a simple phone call of the night before the video goes up. If you know it's going up, who knows if you knew it was going up? Just letting her know, hey, look, this is happening. I want to be a father to this child. That seems like a very noble thing. But I'm just giving you a heads up. Like, and it seemed like it all could have been avoided with that, but it just seems like over and over again, there are just simple public relations strategies and crisis management strategies that Zion is not doing. And this is like even related to some of his injury stuff where it just makes it worse. He just doesn't know how to like handle stuff and doesn't have anybody around him who's good at doing it.
I think your point about if he knew the video was going up or not should not be overlooked. I do think there's a non-zero chance he had no idea it was going up. Especially again, you described the nature of the YouTube channel just popping up and that being the only video. Again, no actual advertisement from Zion in any capacity. Um, Certainly he seems very happy in that video and proud to be a father, but again, no public acknowledgement outside of that video that's gone up. Um, so yeah, like I think that had he known, maybe he acted differently, but maybe he just thought that it wouldn't go up or it'd be going up at a different date or whatever it is. I do think you're right about the people around him not being equipped to handle the situation and frankly letting him down in a lot of ways that he really should be protected from. Like I don't know if he has personal security, but
He
a
does.
picture.
He is a personal security guard who's like a very well regarded guy. I won't say his name,
Yeah,
but yeah, he
and
does.
so like a picture of Zion sleeping and his back tattoo prominent should never be hitting the internet, right? And those are things that I think folks around him could have done a better job in preventing. You're not going to stop him from uh, sleeping with whoever he wants to sleep with. That's just going to happen. But I think you can mitigate the fallout of that happening, and I think that wasn't done, and it's still not happening. And very clearly, this Mariah Mills person is claiming that she's violating her own NDA and she forged her signatures. And I mean, any lawyer worth their salt's going to eat that up, and so like it just makes me question again the validity of all of this. Like you've put this in public record now. what do you expect's going to happen?
I admitted to signing not my. I intentionally defrauded you on an NDA document, like something you believed I signed in earnest. I signed it, the Hamburglar, and you're stuck now. Like what you? Why would you tell us that? Why would you tell us that?
And the other part of it too, this whole saga, what Zion's stepfather did on Friday was just, from a strictly public relations standpoint, was just pure stupidity. It's fine if you want to have the event, but if you were going to get in front of the microphone and cameras when you're clearly on the record, do not talk about this situation. Like, I was just looking around when he made the comment of believe half what you see, nothing what you hear. And, there's some Pelicans employees who looked like they were going to melt into a puddle when he said that. It was like,
It was a message
no.
to the kids. Like, wait, what is going on here? Why are you using this as the time to, get up there on your pedestal and try to damage control? Like we just said, I don't think the people immediately around him are equipped to handle any of this. There's no level of professionalism that is carrying over in any capacity.
And it's like, he is young on one hand. On the other hand, he has a lot of teammates now who know how to move. He has a good agent. Austin Brown with CAA is a respected guy. It just doesn't seem like he listens to any of the people he should listen to or get advice from them. It's like, pick up the phone and call CJ or Larry or like Garrett Temple. Call Austin Brown, or someone with CAA. It's like, yeah, man, I stepped in it. Like, I've repeatedly stepped in it. Like, how do I not continue to make these mistakes? Especially with like the messaging of injuries and things like that. It's like he has easy access to people who can help them learn how to just move better as, a young star, but it doesn't seem like he ever listens to them.
Yeah, it's like we've talked about, like, on the basketball side of things, like I would love to see him at Brickley's working out with another NBA player, and you never see that. So you don't see him mix with guys that are already in the league that already have done the work that he's going to do, that are helping him like learn the right thing, perfect his craft, like much like the way that we see our friend Trey Murphy do all the time. Trey is never not working out. Trey's in other countries finding gyms, doing workouts and putting them online and everything. Like, he's moved perfectly. And unfortunately, he caught some strays in all this. I don't know why his name had to get dragged in here, but it did. But little did I know, like, this is just another one of those things. Like, I wanted to see him working with NBA players. It seems like he like lives in this kind of this small bubble that hasn't really protected him from stuff. He doesn't have the influence of other players, guys that are more experienced, guys that can help him. And they didn't protect him from, like, maybe the number one thing that you want to protect your 22-year-old multimillionaire from, like getting caught up in a situation like this. Just, yeah, weird all around. And throwing strays at our guy Trey. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of why Trey Murphy is so savvy, I mean, one, I think he's just like kind of precocious for however old he is, 23, something like that. But like, there was years when Trey Murphy was in college where he's probably like, oh, I'm not going to be an NBA star. Like, I'm going to have to, like go do something else to, like make a living for myself. So he had to like contemplate probably like a normal existence. And I think that makes you grow up. Like Zion, I think, like one of the best prisms to view him as is he's just a child star with like a kind of a stage parent. I think that's the right way to think about him. He's been in the public eye since he was 16. His stepdad kind of handled a lot of different stuff, and you're seeing him try to become his own guy, and there's understandably growing pains. But like, that's how I kind of think of him. It's a child star with like a stage parent who's had a lot of influence.
Yeah, Papa Ken don't play no games. Just saying. You got a real guy over there that's going to be on Trey if he gets off of it.
Yeah, I mean, Christian, I think that's a perfect way to put it. I think his parents, particularly Lee, have had a very, I guess, specific idea of what they want Zion to be, and they've made moves in order for him to be that person, and it's led to a lot of issues. I think in the way certain things are approached, but maybe this is the learning moment. Maybe this is the one that gets through. Maybe this is what changes everything. Um, I mean, if this isn't it, then you don't know what it will be. But certainly you would hope that this summer, it's not even like full blown summer yet. It's just barely dipped into the off season. Finals are still going on. But yeah, hopefully this has been already a very fruitful one as
Well,
his extension kicks in about 3 weeks.
will people even remember this in 2 weeks?
No, no, not as
Maybe.
soon as free agency starts. I think it'll be on the back burner.
I only
Um,
wonder if he'll catch it just because like we need him to get on the floor consistently, and it'll be like one of the extra criticisms until he's played enough and people see him be amazing again.
They won't remember it because Scoot Henderson will be on the team.
Oh,
Yikes.
okay. Let's talk about the draft. That was enough Twitter drama for one episode. Okay, so I mean, I guess let's just go right into it. I think are we all three of us on this podcast scoot ahead of Brandon Miller, guys? I think it's safe to say me and Shamit are. Adam, where do you stand on Brandon Miller versus Scoot?
I think Brandon Miller got really, really hot for a nice run in the SEC tournament, and it kind of overinflated him a little bit. It's like if Jaylen Brown weren't a freak athlete, that might be like, I guess Brandon Miller's got a better handle, but he's a skinny guy. His finishing's not great. He can shoot, like he can really, really shoot. He can pass a little bit, but he doesn't necessarily create for people. I still think he's like a top 5 guy. I just don't love how like Scoot's been kind of pushed down. I think a lot of that has to do with like what the Ignite are, what Scoot was in his first season versus what he's been this year. And people feel like, I guess he's fallen off. Scoot's a brick shit house that is an elite athlete. It feels like him and Wemby are the two clear all-star ceiling possibilities. Obviously Wemby's the far runaway. But like, I can't forget how he played against Wembanyama. I just see him as like a brick shit house that can defend, that can play on ball, that's going to put his shoulder into guys and score. And I think, I still like Brandon Miller. I think Brandon Miller is an incredible basketball player. If you want to take him 3, sure. I think if the Hornets pick him because of like fit stuff, I think that's a mistake. That's kind of my spiel. He's a small dude, and I don't love the finishing and everything, and I don't know that that's going to get better. What happens when he plays off ball?
Yeah, I mean, like when I watch Brandon Miller, I'm like, this guy's good. Like I like this guy, but when I watch Scoot, I'm like, oh, this guy's special. Like this guy has a chance to be like an all-star 5, 7, 10 times. And he's got to deliver on that. But do you think part of it, I guess, Shamit, is he's 6'2", and if he was 6'4", it wouldn't really be a discussion at all?
Yeah, I do think that's a part of it. But I think I do want to push back on Adam a little bit. I don't agree with the notion that Miller is necessarily small. Like I think that like his frame will fill out. What's attractive about him is the fact that he's 6'9" and he can shoot. And I do think that his passing ability is quite underrated for like relative to like the way some other players are talked about in this draft class. I think he has a legitimate pathway to becoming an all-star, and I think there's people look at a wing with that size and that ability to shoot, and then like we've talked about the ability to handle, and they think we could put him into any system and we could build around him any which way. And he's probably not going to be a liability defensively, at least in his peak. I think all rookies are at some point a liability unless you're Herb Jones or Dyson Daniels. But I think there's a lot of attractive features about Brandon Miller. And that goes back to what you just said about Scoot being 6'2", and people are like, well, he's a 6'9" wing. This guy can, maybe he's like Tracy McGrady, and like that's a ridiculous comparison because he's not going to be Tracy McGrady, but that's what people think, right? When they see that prototype, they think this is what this guy might turn into, and they salivate. But Scoot, someone else just said this on Twitter, and maybe they're quoting another person, I don't recall, but the way they put it was like, I don't know if he's going to be an all NBA guard, but I have no idea what one else, like what an all NBA guard is supposed to look like other than what Scoot is in terms of as a prospect, like prior to entering the NBA. And I'm like, yeah, that if that's not an like a future all NBA type player, then like what is? Like I don't know what I'm looking at then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, go ahead.
he gets beat on for his shot too. Like the 3-point shot is one of the things that gets added to the height. And as a guard, like that's the thing that dings you. But if you add up all of the competitions, like a lot of people throw out that 20s number, like he shoots 27% from three. If you add up all of his competitions, it's actually more like 32, 33. It's pretty close to average, and it doesn't look like this awful thing. He gets off mid-range shots that look fine. He's got touch. It just doesn't look like he's going to be like a guy who can't shoot a three. Relative to, a lot of people have thrown around like, 27%, he can't shoot. So that's my last caveat.
Yeah, I mean, like he's got the pull-up 2 game, like the pull-up mid-range game, which already looks really nice. I mean, just stupid athleticism, and he just seems very serious about being a pro. I guess that's one thing that would make me confident in like adding him to whatever team I was a part of or whatever. Like he's been a pro for 2 years. Like everything I've read and just kind of seen, like I don't know, man. He seems very serious about like maximizing his potential, and like it feels very high ceiling, but it feels pretty high floor to me too. I have a hard time seeing how he fails.
I do think there's something to be said where a lot of the draft evaluators in the draft Twitter community are like, this is one of the best paint touch generators I've ever evaluated. And I don't think those statements can be like taken lightly. Obviously, like draft evaluations are an imperfect science, and if someone had perfected it, they would make lots of money working for a team. But with the ability that he gets downhill and then is able to process and make reads, because it's not just that, hey, I can get downhill. There's lots of guys that can get downhill. It's what do you do next when you get downhill? And he is very aware of where the defense is coming from, where the help is going to be, and where his offensive pieces are, so he can find them, or where his outlets are. um at his age, being that advanced, especially playing against other professionals, like that's very compelling for me. And I think when I look at how like teams are built, I do think that like there is an overemphasis on wings. And I think that emphasis started because of Golden State and Steph Curry and Houston. And they were like, this is the only way to kind of like neutralize that specific team with Kevin Durant and all of that. When realistically every other championship kind of outside of those have featured, dominant big men or guys who can take advantage of switches. And I think having a guy like Scoot gives you an offense that can be versatile, because when you do run a pick and roll or when you do get a switch, a 6'2" guy matched up against a big is generally going to favor that 6'2" guy, right? But if you have a 6'6" guy setting a screen for a 6'7" guy and you just switch those two defenders, you haven't really created that big of an advantage. And so that's an underrated team building aspect of that's attractive to me when I consider his potential fit on a team like the Pelicans. But anywhere he goes.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not hard to figure out what to do with him on offense. Like, give this guy the rock. Like let him run a bunch of pick and roll, and like he's your lead guard for 10 years, hopefully, right? I mean, that's easy to figure out what the role is offensively. Like with Zion, it's been very interesting. I mean, we can't say enough things about just his natural talent, enough good things, but it took some time to figure out like what's the best way to use this guy, and I think the answer probably is kind of point Zion. But also, like, do you want to physically tax him in that way? I mean, I think you just have to use him, in the way he's best. But like, that's very physically taxing for a guy who's, between 285 and 300 pounds. Like, Scooter just makes sense. Like, give this guy the ball, give this guy the rock, and like let him do his thing.
Well,
It's just
Griff
very
loves saying this, right? Well, we played Zion one way and he was a generational scorer, and then we played Zion a completely different way and he was a generational scorer. And so, like, yeah, I do think there's something to be said about like the point Zion being one of the most efficient offenses we've seen. But I don't think at any point Zion has like thrown a stink at being used in different ways. And I think as a from hooper to hooper. He understands he needs to be versatile, and it can't just be his show the whole time. It just so happens that in the teams that he's been a part of, it being his show has led to the best results. But we have such a small sample of that, and you can't really build on that.
All right, should we move down to some guys who are potential targets at 14? I'll start here because they recently hosted this guy for a pre-draft workout, and if you believe Pelicans Reddit, they took him out to Dominica afterwards for some za. Derek Lively, the second center from Duke, he was like the number one player in his high school class. Did not have a very good year at Duke. From I guess in a lot of respects, but the one thing he showed was he can be a rim protector. Are you guys Lively guys? If he's there at 14, would you do it?
Depends. I'm the same thing Shamit just did with that head. Like, kind of who went 11, 12, 13 is my curiosity. Yeah. I think he, a lot of people are going to look at him and say like, oh, he's athletic and long. He could be a switch big. He's not. He's a drop big. And like, you hope that this 3-point shooting that he's had in the workouts where he either made 12 in a row or 15 in a row or 17 in a row. I don't think anybody has an accurate number. He can shoot, and Duke just didn't let him because like Duke and Kentucky are famous for kind of suppressing the exploratory abilities of guards and bigs. He
went 2 of 13 there from 3 this last season at Duke.
Right.
2 of 13.
But the supposedly during his workouts, at some point he hit 17 threes in corner threes in a row, which corner threes.
Well, I'm
whatever.
sure Billy Hernangomez does that during his workouts.
Sure. Ben Simmons famously every summer. I think, he very clearly can be a rim protector. Maybe that shooting can potentially be real, but you have no idea. But he does seem like maybe like Walker Kessler-ish in terms of what you get as a defensive prospect moving around the paint. Like, he does make people change their minds when they get into the paint. That's reliable. Should that be what you're picking here? I think if you're picking him here, you believe he can shoot. Like, if the Pelicans take him, you're believing that he can shoot. And if he's not, I probably don't think they should take him.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that give me pause. One is that, if selected in the lotto, he would have the lowest offensive usage rate of any lottery pick in, I think, last 10 years or something like that. And part of that, being a big man, your usage is dependent on your perimeter players. And part of that's, dependent on the system. So I think with better guards, a better focus, that usage goes up, but it's not, that's like the best case scenario, right? Like, the current scenario we have, it's the lowest offensive usage rate in any lottery prospect in like the past 10 years. So that's a little bit scary. The second thing is like, I think at least with regards to the Pelicans, their focus on him was can he defend in space? And you don't have to be a guy, you don't have to be Larry Nance, but like if you get caught in a pick and roll, and can you play the 2-man game? Can you be like jab at someone and then recover back to contest a shot at the rim or box out? I think they're satisfied with how he defends in space, but it's just like, okay, is this big man going to be someone that contributes over the course of his rookie contract and worth investing in? Or should you invest in a perimeter player and try to find a second draft big man that will basically give you what his production, at least in years 1 to 2, maybe 1 through 3, is going to look like? Because if you look at the way the Pelicans are constructed, there's so many mouths to feed. There's no way you're going to be like, Derek Lively is going to come to this organization and he's going to develop an offensive game. Like, that is just not going to be his role. And if he wants to get on the court, it's because he can rebound and he can defend and he can dunk the ball, and maybe he can hit a corner 3, right? Like that's what's going to get him on the court. But I feel like you can find those guys for somewhere around biannual level money, minimum level money. Worst case scenario, you have to give $5 million to JaVale McGee the way Dallas did in a starting spot. No, I mean, like, but the point being is like, I think there's a market inefficiency for those type of bigs when it comes to like the second draft, guys that are exiting their rookie contracts. You know, someone's probably going to get, I don't want to say a steal with Jackson Hayes because I don't think he's ever going to be like a great player, but like it would not surprise me if he signs for the league minimum or like for $3 million somewhere at some point in his career, and he's like an energy role player that that specific team needed. It would not surprise me, and so like you got to find, in my opinion, you know, who's going to be the next Rashawn Holmes before Rashawn Holmes makes $12 million a year. You got to find him at
Yeah.
that $5 million rate, and I think I would rather invest a lotto pick on a perimeter guy instead of Derek Lively, who I would love to pick up in 6 years from now.
To me, like the rim protection stuff is special. Like Lively's huge at 7'2" with standing reach. I don't know what it is. It's something ridiculous. But like,
7'9" wingspan, is it 7'8" wingspan? Something like that.
yeah, I think you're right.
7'7",
But like
7'7".
he blocks shots with his right hand. He blocks shots with his left hand. He had a game where he had 8 blocks against North Carolina. But when I watch him, that's pretty much it. Like he can't score unless a guard is spoon feeding him. Like if he's going to score at all, it's got to be, you know, kind of in the pick and roll diving or like maybe a lob over the top, but just no offensive game really on tape other than that. Um, I don't know, like the rebounding looked okay, but like he got pushed around and there's not great lower body strength. So you're pretty much just, you know, like the one positive skill right now is rim protection, which is valuable. But like to me, that looks like the only skill in his entire game where I can be like, okay, this is clearly a positive.
Yeah, I mean, like Phoenix made it work with Biombo and Jock Landale, and I think that's kind of the key for these guys, is these low usage bigs that you should probably go bargain bin hunting, um, rather than investing a lottery pick in them. But you're like you said, sometimes the physical tools. I think like last year, Mark Williams selected in a similar range. I was more sold on Mark than I am with Lively, mostly because I thought Mark could switch. I thought he, you know, you put him on a 1v1 with the guard, he moves his feet. And I'm like, okay, this guy, in my opinion, can make a that big of a difference defensively to where he'd be worth taking in the lotto. And I think this class in general has just no viable. I mean, I don't want to say no, but it has like 4 viable draftable big men. And so by that, like a guy with Lively's measurements is bound to go in the first round, likely in the lotto. Like they always go in the lotto. It's just
I've heard he's probably not even going to be available at 14. Like I've heard
yeah.
probably
I
off
mean,
the
like
board by then.
that, he makes a decent amount of fit in Dallas. Like Luca needs a guy like that, right?
They
At
tried.
least
Willie Cauley-Stein was there.
well,
They gave
like I
him a
said, they
starting
gave
role
JaVale
that he didn't.
McGee. They gave JaVale McGee the starting role. They gave him
Yeah,
$5 million a year. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that those are my thoughts with him. Like, would I be upset if the Pelicans took him? No, not at all. It would be a shrug.
All right, let's talk about the French guys. Correct my pronunciation if I screw this up. Bilal Koulibaly and Sidi Sissoko. Koulibaly plays for Mets 92, the same team as Victor Wembanyama, who will be the number 1 pick. And Sidi Sissoko plays for the G League Ignite, teammates with Scoot Henderson. So those guys are teammates of the soon-to-be number 1, maybe number 2 picks. Explain to me the differences between those two guys.
Wow. So starting with Bilal, he's bigger. He's like a legit 6'8", maybe 6'9", longer wingspan, more slender frame. I think they're both very, very athletic. So like I don't want to say like one's more athletic than the other. I would say Bilal is more finesse and City is more force. I think City is a better passer. He grew up as a guard, you know, one of the many prospects that used to be guards. I know that's thrown around a lot, but he has legitimate passing chops, especially when he gets downhill. And I think he gets downhill really quite well. I think Bilal as a defender has a potential to be extremely special. Not that I think City is also like very capable of being a defender. He has some tremendous on-ball blocks, but like Bilal's size and length just will allow him to be positionally versatile in a way that City's not. And I think City is probably closer. Um, to like a Josh Hart type, whereas Bilal, I think, is more of a ball of clay where he can be like, maybe he's a Batum type, maybe he's turning into someone that's more of a four than like your traditional wing that can do it all. Maybe we don't exactly know with Bilal. Again, because it was Wemby's team, and a lot of the focus is on Wemby, but both again very intriguing and are probably going to go in the lotto.
Yeah, Bilal's like on a heater right now too. Like all these other prospects are not playing right now, and Met's still playing, and he's been lighting it up as a scorer. And also all of a sudden, like it felt like he was somebody that if you asked 2 months ago, people were starting to talk about him potentially being in the top half of the first round, and you were like, wait, who is this? And then now this stretch of games that where no one else is playing, he's kind of been showcased quite a bit. And now it seems like he's like a no doubter to go top 15. And they're apparently like commentary wise, like on those game calls, they say Kalabali, but also every other time I've seen a last name similar to that in professional soccer, it's been Koulibaly. So who knows? But for what it's worth, the French are pronouncing it Kalabali, which is different for me. But yeah, it seems like he's like a no doubter now. It seems like he's like a cat out of the bag, like kind of late
big
riser
riser
guy.
Yeah, huge riser. I mean, the way it was explained to me by like an NBA person, their take was that Bilal has just much more natural talent, but it's probably going to take him a while to hit at the NBA level. And, Sidi Sissoko, maybe a higher floor, but lower ceiling. This person thought like Bilal, yeah, probably a lottery guy. Sidi Sissoko, uh, probably unlikely, like mid to late first round was where they had him pegged. But Bilal is really interesting. I mean, like he'll just get in your stuff defensively. Like he does some stuff athletically, just like really fast, explosive straight line drives to the rim, where it's like, okay, you just look like you're a shot out of a cannon. Um, he has like just a lot of like straight line explosiveness at times that it's like, okay, that looks really intriguing. I don't know if you'll make shots at all. You're super young, but definitely an intriguing guy.
Both of them have that shooting question mark and will probably be the swing skill on what they do. And I think it's likely easier to accommodate the bigger guy that can't necessarily space or shoot than it is to like uh, accommodate the more guard sized guy. And look, I don't think City's like small by any means. That guy is like built and he is strong. He moves people on his drives and is legitimately explosive. Like I think um, even if he doesn't develop his shot, his downhill pressure is something that's going to pose a lot of problems for defenses, especially if he ends up on a team like a team that has a lot of shooting, a team that has a lot of good creation. Like I can just imagine him playing off of Jokic and like kind of playing the Aaron Gordon role. I know he's not as big as Aaron Gordon by any means, but just like being like that. Okay, one questionable shooter's on the court, and everyone else can like space and shoot, and this guy he'll be the Swiss Army knife, and it's I am surprised that this NBA person thinks that like mid to late is his range. I think personally, um, there's a lot more questionable prospects out there, and I think he has a floor that I'd be comfortable playing tomorrow. Like I would be, and I think coaches would really like him just because of the
Hmm.
effort and intensity he brings on the defensive end.
Do you guys think the Pelicans can afford to take another guy where there are those questions about the shooting ability? Like, can they take another, let's just give him to Fred Vinson and see what happens guy, if they're going to continue to build with Zion?
It's kind of can they or will they? Like it feels like this is what we do. So would they do it again because they just believe that like we have this
Should they?
advantage?
Yeah. In your opinion, should they?
I don't know. I mean I have the fan belief that like Fred does work with these guys and does fix people. I also don't know if Bilal like if he can't shoot, he doesn't. So I like there's no sample to look at and say like, oh, he's a terrible shooter. There are some guys in this draft that like you can look at them, they've shot a ton, and you can be like, ugh, this isn't gonna come around anytime soon. You kind of don't know. Like maybe he can, and maybe they get some intel on that. They get, they talk to him and realize that that's usually the bet that they're making, right? They have a higher level of confidence about fixing it than we think. And like you've said before in articles, like work ethic is part of the deal. I would obviously much prefer. I'm hoping that this pick, assuming we make it, is going to add skills that we were lacking in previous seasons. Like hopefully, if everything works out great, like potentially bridge two gaps, like either get rebounding and shooting or get a little bit of ball handling and shooting. But like we still have this conundrum of perimeter shooting right now that we clearly need. Playoff teams have it. We need to have it. It's probably the biggest gap we have. I would love to see it at least like be a tangible shooter. Maybe they believe that Bilal is though. So like I struggle. I would like shooting, but maybe they believe they can make him a shooter.
I think for me, it's just best player available. If that guy can shoot, great, love it. I don't want them making the choice between two players and ones that were just a straight up worse player. And so the example I would give is I know a lot of Pelicans fans like Jordan Hawkins. He can shoot, amazing shooter, amazing movement shooter. Might be the best movement shooter in the class. But that's about it. That's about it. And I personally value a lot of other prospects over him and his one-dimensional skill set, in my opinion. And I think if faced with a choice where like you have Hawkins on the table and another prospect on the table that can't shoot but is clearly better, I would take the clearly better prospect. And so that's where where I'm at. But if it's close, then I lean with Adam. Like, hey, if these guys you think they're gonna have a similar amount of impact on your wins, then take the guy that you're not going to be able to sign in free agency and
Right.
acquire in any kind of reasonable way.
Yeah, I mean, I think they like Hawkins. I think that would be interesting. I mean, it doesn't seem like Grady Dick's going to be there at 14. I think that's a guy who just makes a lot of sense. Like they like
Wait, so
big
here's a question
wings.
for you. If Dallas doesn't take him, and I don't think Dallas will, it leaves, in my opinion, Orlando at 11. And Orlando's got 6 and 11. So they can take a swing at 6 and then take the safer guy at 11. And I think people would agree Grady's safer, whatever that means in NBA terms. But if Orlando doesn't take him, then who does? You have OKC and Toronto. Do you think either of those take him?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting. I mean, I mean, who doesn't need a 6'8" guy who's what is he 19 who shoots the shit out of the ball? I mean, literally any NBA team can use that guy.
Yeah, but then 16 teams pass on Trey Murphy.
Yeah, that's true. Golly.
I mean, isn't part of Trey though, like the moving from Rice to Virginia during COVID, like he was a late riser unfairly. And like coming into his body later and everything, he had some stuff going against him that suppressed him a little bit. OKC is interesting because like they have so much stuff there. There are so many guys in like the top 15 prospects that I could see them taking. Just because like there isn't a right or wrong answer for them. They have a lot of stuff and like they could swing on anything. But yeah, I could see him taking Dick. I could also see OKC not going with him because they're willing to take somebody that's just like a more versatile piece, like looking to try and exert more value out of the pick than that, because that tends to be like they kind of just take swings on everything historically.
They can afford
so
to.
yeah, so I'm with
the
you.
Josh
Maybe
Giddey pick was
there.
just beautiful. Like that was just beautiful. I love Josh Giddey. Like a guy that big who can handle and pass like that. Like I loved it. I was like, this is amazing. And I'm glad we started to see like, yeah, this was a really good pick this year.
And they took my boy, Usman Jang. They took
my
boy.
Another just big ball handler.
Yeah.
Still time. Who knows where we'll be with Usman Jang in a couple years. We shall see.
Future MVP. That's where we'll be.
So can I ask?
Go
Can I
ahead. Go
ask?
ahead.
Can I interject a quick question? Is there, Shamit? I'm curious if you have like me, like every year when I did this, like a little bit of draft coverage with Christian last year when we started this podcast, and I find that I always have like, there's always at least one guy that I firmly believe in that I just like. It doesn't necessarily matter like who is he, what is he, where is he going to fit, what team's he going to land on. There's just a guy that I watched play, and I'm like, this guy is going to make it in the league for 10 plus years. And then there's a guy that I look at and I'm like, this guy is not going to make it. Last year for me, that was Johnny Davis as the guy that I just didn't agree with how everybody evaluated him. When you're comping him to CJ McCollum and saying that like he could be the next CJ, and CJ is an all-time craft player, it's like when people compare guys to Draymond Green as a defensive prospect. I just don't agree with taking a guy that's not an incredible athlete at that point. And then the guy I believed in, like Jeremy Sohan, like I watched a bunch of those games, and I was like, this guy's just going to be in the league for a long time. He's going to piss a lot of people off defensively. I just believe it's going to happen. Do you have a guy that you like, you just no doubt, like not Scoot and Wemby, like we know how we feel about them. You have a guy after that you just believe is like gonna be a guy that makes it, or like makes it higher than people believe, and a guy that you just like completely disagree with being like a top 20 prospect?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of guys that I'm pretty high on, but I think for your criteria of like, hey, this guy's just gonna make it. I think it's Brendan Pajemski. I look at that guy. People think
So
maybe he's
good.
not athletic enough. I'm like, he's stupid smart when it comes to just seeing the floor. Legitimate passer, legitimate touch, crazy good shooter. Um, I think his athletic concerns are overblown. Rebounds the crap out of the ball. Uh, I think he's gonna make it. I think you can put him on any team, and sure, it's gonna take time for any player to adjust to the NBA. But like, I think he figures it out, and I think he will start providing value relatively quickly. Because of all of those things, you can't, when you look at prospects and you're like, okay, we need X, Y, Z to go right for this guy to like really work out. And with Brandon, it's like he's already a good passer, he's already a good rebounder, he's already a good shooter. So it's like, what do you really need to go right? And it's like, we just need him to not be like completely overmatched athletically. And I think in the combine through the athletic testing, he graded out pretty solidly. It was just like, oh no, he has the tools. He doesn't seem like he's gonna be Jimmer out there who just well, Jimmer didn't work for a variety of reasons, but part of it was the physical stuff. So I really believe in Pods. I think he's going to be successful. Not sure where he goes. I think his draft grades have been all over the place.
Yeah.
Depending on how much you believe in him or not. I am not. I think I've already kind of talked about Jordan Hawkins. I think he'll stick around in a way like Devontae Graham stuck around and like Langston Galloway stuck around. But like, do I think he's
He's just too
gonna?
small.
Yeah, and in my opinion, just at the NBA level, going to be too one dimensional. And so like, he may be an amazing shooter, and I think like the best case of like an amazing small shooter that stuck around for a while is Seth Curry, right? Like that guy, but he has ball skills, like legitimate ball skills, and can pass. And
And it took him a lot of time too. I
I
mean,
was
he
gonna say the
didn't
same
do it at
thing.
first.
man,
Look at what that road
many
was.
stops. Yeah,
He was he was technically a Pelican for a second.
yeah. A lot of people are still upset about that whole way that went down. But but not to pick on Hawkins a little. Um, I'm not a believer in general of anyone that is just not an efficient player, like a very like I don't say not an efficient player, like a very inefficient player at the college level. I'm just not a believer in those type of guys. I don't think they have good history. That's one of the reasons that I was
That's the
out on
Cam Reddish hypothesis right
the
there.
Cam Reddish, Johnny Davis. Again, he's like, you're this tough shot maker who doesn't really make them at good rates, right? So it's like,
And why do you keep taking them?
yeah, because you can't. That's
Keontae
all you can do.
George.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the one guy I'm like, I look into that and I'm like, well, Nick Smith was not that efficient, and I'm willing to let that one slide a little bit because it's like Well, he was coming off of an injury, and the spacing in Arkansas was really bad. Really weird situation for him. But again, it's like, would I bet money on him being like a tremendously successful NBA player? No, but I'm willing to give him a little more leeway than I would have like with Cam Reddish. I think he gets a clean slate there. The other uh, person that I'm a little bit lower on than I think draft Twitter is Jarace Walker. I think I've seen him in top 5, and I'm just like, I think he's going to be okay. I'd probably take him in the top 10, but top 5 when with the people in this class, I just can't get behind. I don't think he's big enough. I don't think he measured all that well, and it's like, yes, your passing is kind of intriguing, but I don't know. He may be like a man without a country if his shot doesn't come
He's
around.
he's this year's Draymond Green comp. He's
Yeah.
this year's I don't know how to describe him. Maybe he's Draymond Green. I haven't seen him as 5. I see a lot of Cam Whitmore go in top 5, which as a scorer you kind of get. The only thing with Whitmore is like, has he passed yet? Right now, has he passed the ball to someone? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe sometime later tonight, his first pass will be recorded.
Dude's a bucket, man. Dude's a bucket. There's like one who this might be I don't know like how fair it is, but like GG Jackson just did not have a good season in South Carolina, youngest player in the draft. I understand he was very, very young. It's just like the tape is bad. The tape is really, really, really bad. And so like I definitely understand the appeal behind him, and maybe a team that's drafting him, it's like, we just want to get him in our system and we'll see what he is 4 years from now. But and that's the appeal, but it's like you got to have a lot of comfortability as a team to make that selection. And so like you better have multiple picks in this draft is what I'm trying to get at. If that is your one draft pick in this draft, unless you are, man, I can't even make the case for like, a contender just like taking a swing, because even those guys need every ounce of production they can from the rookie scale players. So it's like in OKC, yeah, OKC's got plenty of picks. They can take that guy and figure it out later. San Antonio, they can take that guy, figure it out later. If the Pelicans took him and that was their only pick, that would be scary. But if the Pelicans had multiple picks in this draft, let's say they had Brooklyn's picks 20 and 21 and 22. 21 and 22. Let's say they had 21 and 22, and that's the trade they're making. And one of those picks was GG Jackson, and one of those was, a more
Brandon
surefire player. Yeah, Brandon. I think that would be something I could digest. And I'd be like, whatever, cool. They took the upside swing. I don't think he's going to be good, but I understand. I get it.
So GG Jackson is your gonna get somebody fired one day guy.
If you put all your eggs in that basket, yes.
Yeah. I think to answer my own question, the two guys that I'm like, for whatever reason, hottest on, I don't get the Keontae George thing at all. He's my Johnny Davis this year. I see him mocked to us a lot, and I'm just like, there's this belief that we have to have a point guard and that's the thing. Like I know John Hollander says it all the time. This team has a lot of guys that need to have the ball in their hands. We do not have a traditional point guard spot available. And that guy just like, he filled up a box score because they gave him the ball a ton. He didn't do it well. And I don't buy it.
37.6% from the field.
He takes so many rough shots. He takes so many rough shots, and I don't know why he takes them. Like my whole thing with Johnny Davis last year, he makes a lot of really tough contested shots at the college level when he should still be able to beat guys with athleticism. So you can't separate from those guys in college, but you're going to go to the NBA and you're going to separate from those guys or finish through them? No. The guy that I irrationally believe in, and I think I'm just going to get more and more confident in this, and I can't even, I just feel like the modern big, like where we've been headed with bigs and everything. You were just talking about Walker, Taylor Hendricks. I just believe he's going to work. I think he's going to work for a really long time. I think anybody that gets him is going to be thrilled that they got him. There's just so much with the offensive rebounding, with the shooting. I don't think he's like this terrible defensive rebounder either. He can move really well. I'm so bought in on him. Like if he got anywhere near us and they wanted to move up and get him, I'd be so thrilled.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he works really well on teams that already have a rim protecting five. So you just can like have a ton of rim protection on the court at all times, and so yeah, I agree with you there. Big fan of Taylor Hendricks.
Last guy before we get out of here, Kobe Buffkin. He's a guy you see in the middle of the first round. Guy who spent 2 years at Michigan, lefty, kind of 6'4" combo guard. Really good finisher on the rim. You know, his jumper looks pretty good. I don't know. It seems like he just does a lot of things well. I mean, does he do anything at elite level? I mean, maybe the finishing around the rim, but I think he's pretty nice. You know, if he's a guy the Pelicans came away with at 14, I don't think I would be too disappointed or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that finishing is elite. I think it was like over 70% at the rim, and that's
it's like 72.
Pretty gnarly, and he measured out quite nicely at the combine. I think there was concern that he was going to be smaller and 6'5" without shoes, I believe it was, and like that's a guard. That's a guard right there. And I think what's cool about him is that Michigan's offense was kind of focused around Jet Howard. Like earlier on in the season, and Jet's again, I think going to be an interesting prospect that's probably within the Pelicans range, and you miss out on Grady. Maybe you want to take the other 6'8" guy that can shoot. But as it became apparent that like Jet was cooling off, not producing at the level they need to, like the offense kind of like shifted towards Kobe, and he kind of displayed, in my opinion, the ability to pass the ball much more than he had the opportunity to do so like early on in the season. And I do think that he makes good passing reads. And part of that, again, is just like you have these downhill players who with an understanding of space and the defense and their surroundings. And I tend to believe in those guys. We've all seen the guys that get downhill and just run headfirst into the first defender they see, or just kind of like launch themselves at the rim over and over again. And you're like, oh, well, if only Dennis Smith Jr. could figure out what to do when he sees a help defender. But I think with a guy like Kobe, he does have an understanding of that, and I think there is a layer of passing that we're probably going to see at the NBA level that we didn't see at the college level.
I feel like the Pelicans have a type. Like, I feel like there are Pelicans guys, after seeing how they operate for 4 years, like tend to be international guys or guys from the South. Like, they love length. I think they like guys who are like, yeah, I'm about the team. I don't know. It feels like there's attributes they keep like trying to target over and over again.
When you get to this point in the draft too, after you get like a lot of the guys in the top 8, there's a lot of athletic promise in those guys. And the big question is like, how do you put it on the floor? Who do they defend? What position do they play? We have some like Aaron Gordon-ish conundrums like that. Jarace Walker is probably like, he is that conundrum. Like, where does he play? He can really defend. What is that going to mean he has to do on offense? And we don't really know. Kobe Buffkin just feels like the guy that once you get past 10, he's just the best basketball player. He just feels like all around, he knows how to play the game. He is just a really, really good basketball player who measures out well. Like, he doesn't have much in the way of deficiencies. Like you said, like the finishing is the prime time thing. I think he can even probably shoot a little better than he did.
Is he the Nikhil that was promised?
I think so. I love him. I love Kobe. I think Kobe Buffkin's like the best basketball player, just all around basketball player after 10. In terms of like,
hey man, if the Nikhil Alexander-Walker who played for the Minnesota Timberwolves this year was on this Pelicans roster, he would have helped. Like, he would have, been a valuable player for them. But sometimes it just takes 2 or 3 teams. No, you're disagreeing, Adam. He was in the playoffs. I don't know if you watched the playoffs, but the Pelicans weren't in the playoffs.
Yeah, sure, but he wasn't playing all year. It was the run at the end that like was the thing that got him all celebrated and everything. And then it went south again, like in the playoffs. Like they leaned on him and he
Oh, that was
eventually
not my
did.
takeaway at all. I thought he played well against Denver in the first round.
I just think he like it wasn't like he was like featured for Minnesota. Like he wasn't the Jaden McDaniels in Minnesota. That was like
He
this
guarded
secret
Jamal Murray.
key.
Like he was like John
Yeah,
Murray. He's
for
their
like
best perimeter player.
for like a short run though, like for a small sample that made it appear as if he like broke out in Minnesota. I just think it got a little overvalued. That's all.
I don't know if like he needs to break out. I think what he really needed was to understand he's probably not going to be that guy. And so like, hey, you provide a lot of other ancillary skills that are valuable. You're a deflection god. You can pass the ball. You certainly have like a competitive desire when you're on the court to like make stuff happen. It's just that like we don't need that competitive desire to translate into 15 bad shots a game. You can be that role player, and I think Christian's saying sometimes takes 3 or 4 teams to understand like, okay, this is actually more of where I'm going to make my money. And I think that understanding also comes when there's real money on the line too. So he's headed into free agency, and we'll see what Minnesota's capped out. they're they're not going to retain a lot of folks, so I'm interested to see where those guys go and for what kind of price. And if I'm like San Antonio, I'm definitely taking a bunch of these guys as like flyers and be like, whatever, I'll give you 20 minutes a game, show me something, and maybe I can get more value for you at the trade deadline when you're putting up good stats on a garbage team. For the first 35 games of the year. Yeah, I don't know, but is Kobe going to be better than Nikhil? That's a tough eval. I thought Nikhil was a good prospect. He certainly in college. I think it's always in between the years with him.
I would agree with that completely. Yeah.
Quick hitter. Shamit, do you think Minnie trades Cat, sticks with Naz to fix the cap?
I wouldn't. I don't know how they're going to trade Cat without taking him on like a certain amount.
Without
of salary
taking
back.
bad money back, yeah.
You could send him to Houston. Boom, that's it. That Houston gets him. Houston's cap space is gone. They figure out a way to trade for Harden or whatever. They could.
He'd really improve their culture.
Dude, I think Ime's they think Ime's there for the culture, right? Like that's their bet. That's why they paid all the money. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's probably like, a couple of teams that they could just absorb him into cap space and solve that cap issue. Now you got me thinking, man. Like you can do the 4th pick and maybe like Jayshawn Tate and some other stuff, like some future picks that they got. Send Cat to Houston. Minnesota gets to build more around Ant's timeline. That's not bad.
How do you make the money work? I don't have it up right now.
I think Houston just has the cap space. You don't need to make the money work.
Okay.
They can just absorb it in the cap. I think.
I think they have 40+ million.
Yeah, I think they can just take him. But if they can't, I think they don't only need to send out like 15 million or so, which they can find in the loose change under their couch cushion. But yeah, I think they're able to do it. I think with the Scoot, not Scoot. Well, he is kind of Scoot, but Kevin Porter Jr. His contract is that like Josh Hart style. You can get out of it anytime you want. You could put that in the deal, and you could just take that to like salary match for a year, and boom, after a year you just kind of cut, or you could just waive him. You could just take that hit for a year, just like get out of here, dude. We don't want you. Although Minnesota could probably use some guard help.
I didn't think I was going to go that hard for Nickeil Alexander-Walker tonight. That just kind of came out of nowhere.
I felt like I had to reel you back in. Like that's exactly why you got the reaction from me that you did.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was some nice defense. Maybe I got a little overexcited.
Yeah, I just, it was just a short period of time. It's also against like a team that really well. So like I get that. Like you saw him guard some special guys well. I was just like, where was that? Like it wasn't like he like broke out in the regular season and became like a featured top rotation guy. You know, that was the Jaden McDaniels thing. Like Jaden McDaniels came out as like big time defensive prospect, like Dane told us on a podcast before the season or early in the season. Jaden McDaniels, why isn't he Herb Jones? Like, well, he's close-ish. And he's got a little bit better jump shot.
You sound like a Nikhil hater, bro.
Maybe I am. I just really hated when everybody
Tell the
like
stands.
I really struggle with when Pelicans, and you know this, you deal with this all the time. I struggle when Pelicans Twitter swings back on guys like the Christian Wood effect, where like any guy that left the team for any reason whatsoever, we just throw out the context of why they were here, why they left, and we just they I can't believe they botched this. If he were here, they'd be in the playoffs. Like
Bro,
that
the Pelicans
always
didn't
happens here.
Yeah, they did not botch the Nikhil Alexander-Walker thing. Like they gave him a chance and he just,
Every
it didn't work
chance.
out. They didn't botch it.
Yeah, they had to. First of all, they moved him for CJ. So it's like, okay. Second of all, like, yeah, those shots were actively hurting them. They're like, okay.
He started like the first 20 games and they were like 3-17 or whatever.
We'll always have summer league. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll always have summer league.
and those like 7 games when Lonzo was hurt.
Yeah.
Dude, that was like the No stock was at the highest it ever was in New Orleans during that time. He was playing off of Zion. He's getting a lot of threes up, looked great on defense. I was all in during that 7-game stretch.
There might be something to the playing off Zion. Like, Zion just makes guys look good. We've seen that off of multiple players, and it's like, they went on a 10-game losing streak when he went out, and like everyone like forgot how to play basketball. They're like, oh, what am I supposed to do here?
Well, look, the Celtics are one of the better defensive teams in the entire NBA, and they collapse 4 guys on him, and that is not their intent. Like, that is the gravitational pull. That is him running inside the 3-point line with the ball in his hands. Like, he sucks in guys he's not supposed to. Like, guys screw up their defensive assignments. I would imagine that's fun to play in.
Zion Williamson, pretty good at basketball.
Really hot take. Blistering hot take.
You heard that here first. Draft Bilal Coulibaly. Shamit Dua says, don't take Jordan Hawkins. Thank you for joining the show, man. It was fun. Appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.